So, ladies and gentlemen, you're very, very welcome to this call this evening. We have the amazing Josh Quigley on the call, who is still at such a young age, has been through so much, has achieved so much, has really faced death head on, and where this guy is going is amazing. He's already making ripples, and those ripples are starting to turn to big waves. And I reckon he's one of these people. Another year from now, he's going to be a household name. I'm really, really proud, and I'd like to thank our admin Lisa for managing to get in touch with Josh and helping us to get this set up. But without any further ado, I'm going to pass over to the man himself, who might just talk us through where he's come from, obviously the incident that led to where he's going now, and he might tell us some about his very, very exciting adventure that he's got ahead of him. So over to you, Josh.
Thank you for that, Aaron. Thanks very much for that introduction. That was very nice of you. So, hi everybody. My name is Josh Quigley. I am known these days as the Tartan Explorer. I'm calling in tonight from a very snowy Scotland. It's been snowing all day, so the place is covered in white, but not too far away from what people would perceive Scotland to be like with the weather. So just a little bit quickly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So very briefly, I'm going to just give you a little bit of an overview of myself and the new project and movement that I've just started. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning and tell you a little bit about me as a person and how I ended up becoming the Tartan Explorer, how that all happened, what happened to me, the story of that, and then talk a little bit about what I'm trying to achieve. And I think then after that, what I'd really like to do is I would really like to open it up to a Q&A, because I feel that sort of place I am in my life now, I'm learning so much every day because I'm dedicating my life to this. So all I do every day is learn about mental health and learn about things that can help me improve and help my recovery. So I think that even in my short time doing this, I think I've got a lot to share with people. So, and I think that the way I can add the most value is to answer specific questions. I find that I'm doing a lot of public speaking now and speaking with people, and also speaking with a lot of people online who are getting in touch. And I always find the best conversations I have is when people just ask me direct questions that are really personal to them. I think I can really help there and add some value. So that's what I'd quite like to do. So
okay.
A little bit of an
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, Josh, but just we can certainly do that. And can I just say, if anybody would like to ask a question but doesn't directly want to talk out loud, that's fine. You can actually just send me a private message via Facebook or text or whatever, and I will ask Josh on your behalf. I'm more than happy to do that. So, sorry about that, Josh, and work away.
Great. So, just for a quick overview, in case there's anyone here who hasn't heard about the Tartan Explorer, heard about my adventure, my challenge. So, very briefly, this year I was struggling with depression, and I attempted to take my own life on 26th of May. I'd done that by intentionally crashing my car at over 80 miles an hour on Scotland's largest motorway. And I survived that. Lying in hospital, I had like a major epiphany. I just realised that I'd been given a second chance at life. And you think about what I'd done, not many people who do what I'd done, or even who attempt to take their own life, get a second chance. So I just felt like I'd really been kept alive for a reason that night. I've never been much of a religious person or a spiritual guy, but ever since that night, it's very hard not to feel very spiritual and feel like you do have some sort of purpose. So at this point, I felt like I'd been saved that night from some force above, because I still had something I hadn't achieved in this earth. And I truly believe that to this day, and I mean it when I say that. And so I was trying to work out what this new purpose was. And it took me a little bit of time soul searching. And I realised that it was to help people with mental health. It took me about 2 or 3 months. I knew that I wanted to do something in mental health and help and inspire people, but I just didn't know how I was going to do it. As I'll talk a bit about later, I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been very entrepreneurial. I've always been into creating things, and I didn't want to just do the traditional way of going and doing like some sort of fundraising event for a charity. I wanted to create something that people could get involved with and could grow worldwide. So that was always my ambition. So I created the Tartan Explorer movement, which is my global movement that I'm trying to get people involved all around the world. And really the aim of that, the vision, the long-term vision is to save millions of lives all around the world by helping inspire people suffering with mental health problems and eliminating suicide from society. It seems like quite a bold claim when I say that about eliminating suicide from society. People think, Josh, that's impossible, that'll always happen, but not in my book. I'm a big believer, you've got to dream big, you've got to have an end goal. And if I was to set a target of getting suicide down to, for example, in Scotland, there's 700 people every year, roughly, who die for suicide. If I was to say that I want that to just be 100 a year, then all I'd be able to achieve is getting it to 100 a year. You need to aim for what's the end goal and then see how close you can get to that. So that is, and I believe that suicide is completely preventable. If people can get help and support and realise the opportunities that are out there for everybody, then I don't believe that anybody in this earth should feel like they have to take their own life. So that's my belief, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. So what the Tartan Explorer is, the Tartan Explorer is a global challenge next year, 2016, where I'm travelling to over 80 countries, spread over 6 different continents, in a kilt, and for anybody who knows morph suits, like sort of really tight spandex like outfit, as a Scottish morph suit. It's got the big salt hat.
Yeah,
it was very noticeable.
We've seen the pictures.
Yeah. So going around the world like that, and the reason when I thought I wanted to make this global, I wanted to go around the world, I thought I need to do something that's going to make people stand up, take notice of my cause. If I'm just travelling around the world to raise awareness and trying to speak with many people and try to get as many conversations with mental health, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm just there as me, as I'm just Josh Quigley. I thought I need to be something that's going to make people go, what's that guy doing? Why is he dressed like that? To get people to go, oh, he's doing that for mental health. Oh, cool. And then that person knows one bit more about mental health and maybe encourage them to find out more about it or to ask a brother how they're feeling or just get more involved in mental health. So that was the reason behind that. So I'm going all around the world, 5 challenges for every country. So I'll talk in a bit more detail about them when I go into a bit longer talk. That's a brief overview of what I'm doing. I'm going all around the world to raise awareness in mental health. And that is my new mission. That is what I've dedicated my life to now. So, who am I? Who is Josh Quigley? To give you a bit of background, I'm from Livingston in Scotland. Livingston's just a small town, about 10-15 minutes outside of Edinburgh, the capital city. So I grew up here, went to high school in Livingston. After that, I went to university, studied marketing, and done a marketing degree at Edinburgh Napier University. And always been very entrepreneurial, wanting to set up a business. I got to last year, it was about the start of 2014, I was in my 3rd year at university, and I was working for a company at the time, doing loads of digital marketing work. And being as entrepreneurial as I am, I thought, well, I'm doing quite a lot of good work for this company, doing digital marketing services, so like social media, managing companies' Twitter accounts and doing Facebook things for them. I thought, well, if the company's quite liking this work, I can maybe set up my own business where I offer these services to other people. So that's what I've done. I set up a business called Shark Dog. Don't ask me where the name came from. I've been here a bit longer. I could go into a lot of detail talking about it, but the business is called Shark Dog, and we got a lot of awareness and done really well because I came up with a really cool story about how the shark met the dog, and it was all just quite funny. And people liked the creativity, and they liked the fact that I was 21 at the time. A guy who was just taking a chance and trying to run a business and do something that a lot of people were doing at my age, especially in Livingston. So that was going really well. The company was doing great, but hired some staff, and I was just, to be honest, loving life as a young entrepreneur. And then, so I got to December this year, January, and something happened where I just didn't feel myself anymore. And between January and May, there was just this really bad 5 months where I was suffering with depression. Just everything seemed to be going well, but there was a few changes in my personal circumstances, my personal life, that things that happened that it just really caused me to go into this state of depression. I just wasn't feeling myself anymore. So I went to the doctors in January, like a lot of people may do when they feel like that, or a lot of people maybe don't because they don't know what help support's there. They just don't believe in that sort of way of getting help because a lot of times it's not there. At the time, I was running a business. I went there in like my business outfit, like I was wearing a suit and stuff. And I said to them, I was feeling like I was struggling with depression, and I just didn't feel like the doctors were really taking me seriously. The questions they were asking was, what are you doing? Are you working? And I was like, yeah. And like, what do you do? I said, I'm running my own business. And they go, how's it going? Well, and I was like, yeah, it's really successful. So they were just like, how can this young guy sitting here today, he's clearly quite intelligent, quite an ambitious guy, he's running a business. How can he be struggling with mental health? How can he have depression? He's not got the signs. He's fine. So I was sort of sent away to the doctors. I felt like I was dismissed very easily. And the sort of advice they just gave to me was, and they asked all the questions, Josh, we just think you need to drink less alcohol and exercise more. That was just the sort of response I got. And at this point, I was a little bit dismayed by that. I just didn't feel that was the right approach. So I went away and sort of tried to battle it on my own. And I had a couple of people, a couple of friends, close friends, maybe 2 or 3, and a close family member who I spoke about some of this stuff. But it was a small group of people. It wasn't a lot of people, just a very 2 or 3 at the most. And I kept battling with it, and it just seemed it was getting worse, and it was getting worse. And it just didn't seem to be getting any better. I just couldn't find any hope. And the best way to describe it is, so I was never actually clinically diagnosed with depression, but I just think that's what it was. That's when I talk about it and I say that I was suffering with depression, I just imagine that's what it was. That was with all the research I'd done and all the things I'd read online. I think it was all the symptoms of depression. The best way to describe it was, if you just imagine like back to when you were younger and you watch cartoons and you have like a little cartoon, I just like a little rain cloud was over my head. And when I was out every day walking about, it was like that little cloud was just raining on me constantly. Everything was grey. I couldn't see any colour. And the best way to sum it up, the feeling I can always remember, is I'm sitting in my room right now, I can actually look at the wall that reminds me of it. It's just getting up in the morning, lying in my bed, facing the wall, lying on my side, and just remember looking at it and thinking, this has got to end. There's just no way I can continue living like this. I had no energy to get out of bed in the morning. Everything was drained out of me. I had no physical energy. I had no motivation. I mean, I had such a great opportunity with the business, which I was loving at one point. I just had no motivation to do anything. All I wanted to do was genuinely lie in my bed, feeling sorry for myself and hide into the world. My way of dealing with my problems at the time was essentially not to deal with it. And I was just trying to shut away from the world. So I would shut the curtains, turn the lights off, lie in bed all day. And that's when you can admit, when you're feeling like that. Like, I could sit in my bed for 4 or 5 hours staring at the ceiling and not even feel bored. It was just, that's how low you are. You just can't move. It was actually quite weird, because sometimes you could feel quite content just sitting there thinking, because you were so low, and it was just a really weird feeling. And that went on and on. And then I got to 26th of May this year. It was a Monday. I'd been feeling low again all day. And my sleep, one of the things that was a problem for me at the time was my sleeping pattern was way off. There was one point in January where I was basically living in a different time zone. I was sleeping during the day and waking up like 11 o'clock at night and staying awake till like 2 in the afternoon and then sleeping again. And it was just a really, really bad time for me. And I just felt like I wasn't living in the real world. And when I tried to stay up during the day so I could get back to normal sleeping pattern, I was just too tired. It was just all I wanted to do was sleep. It was just horrible. So there was one in May, I was also going through some of those bad sleeping patterns again. And I woke up at about 1 in the morning, Monday, Tuesday the 26th of May, this would be now. And I just thought, this has got to end. And thinking back in that night, that moment, I can't actually remember where it came from or what made me just do it. I honestly really can't. But so I decided this has got to end. And I've always been somebody, so over those few months, I've been obviously thinking about suicide for a while. It's something I just thought, because it seemed like an easy option. It seemed like something that I had to do. If I just wasn't here, I wouldn't have any more problems. So one of the things that I used to, actually, the only thing that made me happy back then was sleeping. I used to love sleeping because it was my way of getting away from the world. When I was sleeping, I wasn't there. I was dreaming. I was dreaming about all these other things. And I used to wake up. When I used to wake up, I used to hate it. It was like, just go back to sleep. And I just used to love sleeping because it was my way of getting away from my reality, what I called life. And it was just horrible. So in that night, I decided, this is it. It's got to end. And I thought, I just went in the car, just purposely went. It wasn't like I was just out driving and I thought this had to end. I was sitting in my room 1 in the morning. I thought, I'm going to do this. That's what I'm going to do. I got dressed. I went out, went in the car. I knew exactly where I was going. And that's, when I'm thinking back on it now, I can't actually remember where the idea came from or how I was going to do it. But I knew when I left the house, I knew exactly where I was going. I was going onto the motorway. I was going to turn around it, come back on myself. And I knew there was a barrier right there. And if I just drove through any of that as fast as I could, then hopefully that would end it. So I went out, I done that. And so I'm on the round of it. I'm coming down the final straight. And I can remember it so clearly. It was a really surreal feeling actually to think, talking about it now, bringing it all back. Like, I'm quite comfortable talking about it now. But even just, I can remember it so well. And it was actually going down that final stretch of road where I felt this is it. It was sort of almost liberating. It was like, this was going to end. And I wasn't even scared at all, which was the scariest part, which is, shows how low I was at the time, which is actually quite scary thinking back. And then I came up to the barrier, I collided with it about 80 miles an hour. And then after that, I can't really remember much. The first sort of memory I had, I've got a brief flashback of being in an ambulance and arriving at hospital. My first real memory was waking up in the hospital. And to be completely 100% honest, that when you first wake up and you realise what happened, it was almost like it was a massive feeling of disappointment. I'd falsely thought that I was going to end my life and it was all going to be over and the pain was going to stop. But it wasn't at first. And then you realise now everybody's going to know. And you know that way there's a stigma around mental health. What are people going to say? Are people going to judge me? You just never know what's going to happen. So I felt, right, everybody's now going to know because I'm now in hospital and people know I'm trying to take my own life. Because at the time, when I woke up, I quite openly told the hospital staff that, yeah, it's intentional, because I wasn't trying to hide anything. I was just being honest with them. This is what happened. I didn't want to be here. So, yeah. So that is what happened. And then, so what was the most remarkable bit was I came to a complete crash at 80 miles an hour. The car completely stopped. And I never had a scratch. I never had a broken bone. I had a fracture, a bruise. I genuinely just lying in a hospital bed was in sort of physical condition that you'd expect if someone had been wrapped in cotton wool for a week. That was just the most remarkable. But I never had a single mark in my body, and I was just lying there. And I had a lot of time to reflect. So I get kept in for a few days because they wanted to do some tests on me because they thought there's maybe some internal damage because there must be something. Doctors just couldn't believe it. And I was lying in that hospital bed for those 2 days, but I was like, after it, I was like, wow, Josh, that is really incredible what just happened. You really have been given a second chance here. And it was at that point, for the first time in months, I felt happy. It was like, I felt almost reborn. It was like and I knew that it was a great feeling. I felt, Josh, it was a massive wake-up call that I think I needed for months. For somebody to just give me a shake and say, Josh, you've got a really good opportunity here. You're a young guy, you've got everything, you've got life ahead of you, you can get through this. And it was that point I realised, it didn't have to be that way. So I'd spent those sort of couple months with the suicide planning in my head, thinking that was the only option, thinking that it had to be that way. I thought there was only one option. A lot of people would like that when they get to that stage, and I realised it didn't actually have to be that way. So I now felt like, wow, this is empowering. It's really great. I feel amazing. I'm going to do something in my life. I'm going to get back on track, and I'm going to get myself sorted. I'm going to get the help and support that I need. And that's what I'm going to do. So at this point, I get to the stage where I think, I want to do something around mental health because I need to let other people know that it does get better, because I was living that firsthand. I was the one who knew that you can feel like that, you can get through it, and you can now start to enjoy it again. So I realised that, and that's the thing that I wrote in my blog way back at the beginning, that suicide is, mental health problems or depression, something like that can be a temporary problem, but suicide is such a permanent solution, and if you do something like that, you can never reverse it. Well, I was lucky I survived, but a lot of people, they can't reverse that decision. So I had to let other people realise this, that, if you can just get through it, speak about it, get help and support, and try and find some opportunities, then you really can live a life. And my big message is not just around mental health. I'm the sort of guy, being an entrepreneur, I'm massively passionate about people just following their dreams and doing anything they want. So I'm massively into people not just taking jobs that they don't like. I'm other people that are going and studying things they enjoy, just doing things they're passionate about. And that's my big message, really. You don't even just have to get through your mental problems and live. You can actually live and achieve anything you've ever wanted. You can really have anything you want. So at this point, I thought, wow, this is empowering. I'm on this new journey. I'm going to help people. I'm going to get that message across and help people in the way that I've been helped. And hopefully that I can help them through my message and things I'm talking about, rather than someone having to realise, like I did, through getting a second chance, because a lot of people won't get that second chance. So this is where I got to this age. I really want to help people. And then I started to think about what things I could do to help people. And I thought about the idea with it going around the world, raising awareness, doing something that's really incredible. So I wanted to, what I felt at the time was, when I was starting to research a bit about mental health, there's a lot of great organisations out there, a lot of great charities, a lot of great professionals doing work around mental health and helping people. And it's great that we've got some good ambassadors for mental health. So in Scotland, we've got Sir Chris Hoy, who's obviously the Olympic champion. We've got Stephen Fry in England. We've got loads of big personalities and media celebrities who are getting behind mental health and trying to raise awareness. And that is great. The more people talk about mental health, the better, in my book. But one thing I felt there was sort of a gap, and it was a problem, was that can a young guy like me, like a 22-year-old guy from Scotland, who's just sort of your average guy, like everybody else, can I relate to Chris Hoy? Can I look at Chris Hoy and think he's just like me? No, I'd probably look at Chris Hoy and think Chris Hoy's he's a gold winning Olympic athlete. Can somebody, can a girl at 19 in England look at Ruby Wax and relate to her because she's an ambassador of mental health? Can somebody at 35 look at Stephen Fry and relate to him? Maybe, I don't think they can. And I think that there needs to be more ambassadors in mental health of real people. People like me, people like you and I, people like on this call, people who have real lives and people can relate to. So I thought, what if I try and become one of the ambassadors for mental health? And be the ambassador through not being the biggest expert on it or the guy who knows the most about mental health, but the guy who's just willing to stand up and talk about it. What I'm really passionate about is suicide prevention, and especially for men, because like 80% of suicides are men, and young males, so there's a massive problem. And I thought, there's nobody really standing up for these guys and showing them that it can be done, and showing them that they can do anything they want, show them they don't need to end their life, show them that you can actually talk about it and get help. That's my message. So I felt like, what if I, at 23 years old, a young Scottish guy, would stand up, take a really public stance, talk about mental health all around the world, put myself up on that pedestal, and put myself out there to the world as a guy who's went through it, share my story, and hope that if there's another young guy, they can relate to me. Because in the town I'm in, it's a very small town, about 50,000 people, and over the last 4 or 5 years growing up when I was coming out of high school, there's been about 3 or 4 quite high-profile suicides in Livingston, young guys just like me. And I would have been the 5th, but I was the lucky one. And I always think to myself, what if those guys had seen somebody like me, somebody talking about it? What if those guys had just decided not to do it at that moment and decided to speak about it? And I think it's a big problem for men especially, because men stereotypically don't like talking about their feelings. They don't like opening up. And I think that is, in my opinion, why the rates for males are so high, and a lot higher than women, because it's obviously, I'm passionate about all types of suicide, but I think if you just focus on men specifically, just because the rates are so much higher, I think that we need to encourage men to speak a bit more openly and honest. And what I'm trying to do now is, by me talking about it online and me saying this is what happened to me and this is what I'm now achieving because of this, because I had a second chance and because I got my life back and I try to achieve things, this is what you can do. So I want now, if I was to imagine that I was doing what I'm doing now, would those 4 boys who I grew up with at my high school in Livingston, would they have made the same decision if they'd seen the Tartan Explorer? I can't say if they would or wouldn't have, but I'd like to think that through the thousands of messages I've got online now, that people would be more inclined to talk and get help. And I can only base that on the sort of things that I'm getting now. So, since I launched the Tartan Explorer, so 2nd of November, I decided I'm going to launch the Tartan Explorer. I'm going to become the global ambassador for mental health. The guy who's standing up there talking about it. The real guy, the young guy who everybody knows. Just a young working class guy from a wee town in Scotland who's talking about it. To encourage other real working class, just people who are just like you and I to talk about it. Because it's great we've got celebrities raising awareness, but I think people need somebody to relate to. So that's what I was going to do. So we got ready, we're going to launch it. I recorded the video, which people have probably seen. And we put it live, and Monday the 2nd of November was the single greatest day of my life. Just 6 months after it could have all ended in that motorway, I was now getting thousands upon thousands of messages from people all around the world, messaging me and saying, Josh, what you're doing is inspirational, what you're doing is amazing, you've really inspired me. And also, out of all those thousands of messages, I was getting hundreds, maybe 200 or 300 of people that I knew locally, people that I didn't know all around the world, saying, Josh, I've also been suffering with this, I've also been suffering with that. And the amount of stories I heard since in the last 4 weeks has just been incredible. Nearly everybody's got a story about either they've directly suffered from it because they've had it personally, or a partner's had it, a sister's had it, a brother's had it, a colleague. Everybody's got a story about something to do with mental health, and it just shows how big a problem this is, how many people are actually affected by it, yet nobody's talking about it. And that's the thing I'm trying to do. So the response so far online, it's just been amazing with all these people getting in touch. And when I say that thing about those 4 guys local to me who I grew up with could have made a difference to them, the thing that makes me think I probably could have is because I've now had, so on the 2nd or 3rd day after I launched the Tartan Explorer, I had a message from a girl in Scotland, I don't know, and she says something on the lines of, the girl's name is Cheryl, she said, Josh, just want to say, I can't believe I'm writing this to a complete stranger. I've just watched your video and it's just really inspired me. I've been struggling with depression for the last 2 or 3 years now. And this week I planned to end my own life. I had a suicide note written. I was just planning how to do it and it was going to happen this week. but I've just seen your video and it's just blew me away and I'm really inspired. I'm now going to go get help and support I need. So right away, there's one person who has got in touch with me and said that through my positive influence, I've managed to help her. And it's not even me that said that, like, it's her, but I've managed to inspire somebody to help her make that decision, which is the greatest thing. I said it way back at the start, the vision of Tartan Explorer was to save millions of lives all around the world and eliminate suicide from society. So I believe now that I was one step closer to that because I had that one person out at the million target. Since then, I had another 4 messages like that, 4 other people. So there's now been 5 people get in touch and actually say that they've decided not to make that drastic decision because they think they can get help and support. So when I talk about those people that in the past, I think that could have made a difference. And I think that it's only been possible through talking about it and opening up and trying to raise awareness of this. And that's why I say I think it is possible we can get rid of this horrible thing in society, suicide. Because when people get that help and support, or people are inspired, that is when they make a decision. That's when they make a positive decision not to do something. So I really think that is possible. I think for me, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it as common to talk about mental health as to talk about physical illness. Like the way that you would quite happily say to somebody in work, oh, I've fractured my ankle, I've hurt my hand, I've broke my finger. Somebody just say, I'm just feeling a bit down, I'm just feeling a wee bit low today, and I'm suffering this, I'm suffering with that. It's just not normal because mental health is, in my opinion, even more important than physical health. Some of the books that I'm reading now, some of the things that are helping me are just amazing. And it's some of the stories that I'm reading in these books, and they use anecdotal evidence. People have had physical illnesses in the past, and through their mind and through the way they look at things and their perspective and their mindset and psychology, you can get over physical illnesses. There's something that is really interesting. There's a study done once where they took a group of patients and who had problems with their knees, their joints in their knees, and there's 3 different types of treatment they could have done. One of them was actually replacing something. One of them was just scraping out cartilage. And the other one was just doing nothing. And all these patients went in. There was like the same amount of sample in each group, in each of the 3 groups. And when they looked at the results, 2 years down the line, see the ones that they didn't do anything to. They didn't actually do anything. They didn't even physically touch their body. But they sedated them. They told them they were going for an operation. They woke up. They just thought they'd been operated. They were in hospital. They went home. 2 years later, they had the exact same results as the people who'd actually had treatment. Because in their mind, they'd sent a message to their brain that said, I'm going into hospital, I'm getting treated for this. So in their mind, they sent a little signal to their brain that says, my knee's better now. So the knee was better. And it just see stories like that. They're just absolutely incredible. And that's the sort of things that I'm learning about now that are really helping me. So I think that's some of the things that I'd like to share, and I could do that through Q&A as well. But one of the things that I'm starting to realise is that, and it's through a book that I read, so I'm really big now into personal development, self-help, psychology, mindset, all these things to do with your mind and your mental health. They make a massive difference. And one of the things that was a real game changer for me when I read it a few weeks ago, and it really has transformed my life, is the first chapter of this book. And for anybody who wants to read it, anybody who likes reading, the book is called The Success Principles by a man called Jack Canfield, who's a very famous self-help author in America. He also wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, a very famous book. And the first chapter of the book is called You're 100% of Your Own Life. You're 100% in control of your own life. And it's basically just talking about how, no matter what happens to us in life, everybody's got a negative story. Everybody's got something that's happened to them. It's all about how you react to it. It's all about you need to take accountability for your life. And what I've been on this crazy journey over the last few weeks as I started to realise some of this stuff is, so Jack talks about this theory called E plus R equals O, which stands for event plus reaction equals the outcome. So think about an event in your life, what has it happened, how you react to it, you get the outcome. So, and this is how I'm applying this to me. So, for example, one of the things that I'm doing that's really helping now is sometimes I'm doing positive affirmations, where positive affirmations are a thing where you just repeat positive things over to yourself. You say it in the mirror, or you visualise it, and you tell yourself positive things, and through doing it and repeatedly doing it, your mind takes that in as a method, and it starts to help you. So, if I wake up in the morning now and I feel a little bit low, the first thing I do is I say it out loud to myself. I trick my brain and I say, I feel great today. As I get up, I go downstairs and start to make breakfast, I keep repeating it, I just go out loud. Every maybe 30 seconds a minute, I go, I feel great today. Like, I'm really excited for the day, I feel great. And see, before you know it, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour later, I start to feel great. Because I'm sending these positive signals to my brain that I'm actually feeling great. When So I'm essentially lying to myself in the morning. If I'm saying I feel good, I work with my physical energy as well. One of the problems that I've had over the last year is I always felt like I had a massive lack of energy and lack of physical energy. And so I wake up in the morning if I feel a little bit tired, the first thing I do is I say to myself, wow, I feel like I've got so much energy today. And I do those positive affirmations. I say it, I say it, I say it. And it's just tiny little things like that you can do that can really help you, which is really just amazing. So I think for me, reading books and learning little things like that can work for you they make a massive difference. And I think that was a game changer for me, learning that all this stuff is in my head and that I can control it if I choose to. And to be honest, that is for me has just been transformational, realising that I can do this on my own. Not on my own, you need good support around you, like a support network, but I mean through the effort that I put into investing time into learning about my mind, investing into what things working mental health, you can actually make a full recovery. And there's also some days where you can still feel low, but for me it's just how you manage that. So those little days where I do 75% of the time, maybe 80-90% of the time, I'm feeling great all the time, which is amazing. But there's those little days where you just have crashes that you feel a little bit lower, but it's a lot better when you have things in place where you just, like I'm just talking about the positive affirmations. So yeah, so I think that's a little bit about my journey, my story, and some of the things that I'm doing. Be keen to hear any of your thoughts, Aaron.
Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic, and you're an inspiring guy, I have to say. There's a couple of things before I open all the lines. There's one, I can definitely identify with an awful lot of what you said. My own story was that I was suffering with depression, anxiety since childhood, but it came to a massive, climax, I suppose, and then I took I had a breakdown. At the time when I had a breakdown, people were kind of looking at me and go, what's wrong with him? Because where I was at that time, I had joined the company, one of the biggest technology companies in the world, and I had become they had 3,500 salesperson. I'd become the top one within that time. Within 3 months in the company, I was number 3, and after maybe 6 months, I was number 1. So, and I was great at what I did, and I was even cocky about it. But that was only inside my job. Outside, I was completely different, and I felt like everything was falling down around me. Eventually, I felt like it did.
Yeah.
So I can definitely identify with that. People are looking at you going, what's wrong with you? And I was one of those people that did go into work one day. I was out of work for a while, and as it was, I was studying sociology and anthropology at the time, because I always hated sales and I wanted to do something else. So I went into work anyway. I finally came back in, and I noticed people were treating me a little bit differently. So I was in a very big meeting with a lot of people there. My whole team were there, and I stood up and said, before we go any further, I said, I just, need to tell you all that I suffer from manic depression, which means I can be up 1 minute and down the next. I said that I'm not ashamed of it, but I do have it, and if you're wondering why I can be fine 1 minute and not the next, then that's more than likely the reason, or else I just don't like you. That was, for me, I can really resonate with that. The other thing, it was, the whole part about the car crash itself. Do you think, Josh, that, in Ireland, I know in Scotland as well, it's constantly young men having car crashes and dying in car crashes, unfortunately. And it's always put down, in Ireland anyway, it's always put down as being reckless driving. Do you think that it's possible that some of these people, it wasn't reckless driving, that was very intentional, that they did crash their car?
that's something that could be true. You just never know. I think well, if you look at it's not something I know too much about, to be honest. I'm just, as I say, just starting on my journey learning about mental health. But when you look at the official statistic versus suicide, I mean, there's some times where you just don't know if it has been or not because if somebody doesn't leave an explanation or leave a message. So I think especially with something like that, if somebody just goes out and crashes their car intentionally, like I tried to do, and didn't leave a note, then it could just look like, if they've never opened up about it any time in their life, and they've never spoken to a single person about it, like a lot of people who the three boys I was talking about earlier, they generally never really spoke to anybody about it. I mean, if those guys had all just died in car crashes, you just would have thought it was just reckless driving, which is incredible. It's just mind blowing because imagine like that, sure, like for their parents or their family, that they just think that their son died through this accidental death, for maybe driving a bit too fast, fair enough. But they might not, and they won't even, they'll go the rest of their life not even realising that it was actually an intentional act, which is mind blowing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's something that, something I've been thinking about. After kind of reading about you and watching your videos and that kind of put the thought in my head. And I had thought it before, thinking about these young people who are out there, and it's always automatically reckless driving, nothing more said about it. You never hear results of toxicology reports, anything like that. You never hear any of that. And I think that, the whole reason our group exists is because of the stigma around it. And it started because I was going to a support group, and I noticed that people were getting as far as the door, turning away and leaving. And I said, well, hang on a sec now. What if no one knew they were here? No, what if we were to have a conversation, but nobody actually knew they were there? They talk. And that's how, this whole thing came about. And it's been a roaring success. And, it has brought people in. And we have had a lot of men like yourself come on. We have some great ambassadors for mental health. And, as a result, we were asked to go to Brussels, to European Parliament, and talk about mental health over there. But we actually turned them down because because we could was number one, and number two, I didn't feel it was the right time. But maybe another time they want us to go again, and maybe I'll pick them up next time. Just quickly though, back to you, sir, and back to your adventure. Number one, so it's 80 countries that you plan to visit.
Yes. And
within what time frame?
So there's not a time frame. When I first set up, it was originally going to be a year, but I thought because of what I'm doing and I'm trying to have as many conversations and meet with mental health organisations and charity to chat to them and see what sort of work they're doing, I thought don't restrict yourself to time, George. Don't rush it. So I've got a route. I know what countries I'm going to. I know where I'm going. But how long that takes, I don't know, because I don't want to get somewhere and, for example, I'm speaking with somebody who's, it'd be great for you to speak to this other person, but it's a week later, can you wait? And I feel like, oh no, I've already got to leave. So I thought if I just set out the route and go and it makes more of a story, it makes more of an adventure that I'm just making my way around the world at my own pace. I can speak to people as much as I want and just decide how I want to do it. So it's not a time limit on it.
Okay. That's great because you're not rushing yourself that way. So how are you going to finance your trip?
Yeah, so I'm aiming to finance the trip through two main ways. So the first way would be through sponsorship. So I'm looking for businesses that want to sponsor it. The main reason for sponsoring it is for them to be help a young with a social cause. But there's massive benefits for these businesses as well because the morph suit obviously is there to be branded and everything I'm wearing they can put their logos on it. Because I'm doing a daily video blog, it's great awareness for them. So that's the aim, trying to get businesses to sponsor it. But another area is my own personal fundraising. So on April the 26th, I'm launching a crowdfunding campaign where hopefully the people who, as part of the community that I build up between now and April, that they want to put in. So the members of the general public who think what I'm doing is good and they want to back it, they can put in money like £5, £10, whatever they feel is necessary. So that's going to be the main way I'm going to raise the money for it.
Okay, well, let us know. Keep us updated.
Yeah.
You know, you keep us updated with what you're doing and when you're doing these things, so we can track it.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. So one of the reasons why I'm doing the crowdfunding campaign in April was that sometimes I think that in charity and social enterprises, all people do is they just want to ask. They just ask. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend 6 months in Scotland first, volunteering in mental health, doing research in mental health, providing as much value as I can, sharing my journey, talking online, and try to give something back, and then I'm going to ask for some money to go, right, because I think I want to show people that how come I that and this, and that I'm trying to do some good. I don't want people to just think I'm just setting this up, get the money, and that was me away. I wanted to, I could have quite easily launched the crowdfunding campaign the first day I launched it, when the video reached 100,000 people online. I was on TV, I was on radio, I was in all the papers. I really could have launched it then and got probably quite a lot of money, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it my way, and I'm going to do it the way I think is best, where I just try and give back, I'm volunteering, giving value, helping people, and then once I do that, I'll build up a bigger community, and then hopefully people can think, you know what, this guy's done quite a lot of good work in the last 6 months, we're going to back this now.
Okay, that's fantastic. I mean, that's really, really commendable, and if we as a group can help out in any way, we will.
I really appreciate that.
That's fantastic. There's just the last thing before I just open the line is when you spoke about there's a woman in our group, and I'm not going to name her obviously, but she posted a video today, and it was something that made me extremely emotional, and I'm sure it would to anyone who has suffered depression, as undoubtedly from the way you speak about it you did. It's that scene in your room, staring at the walls, thinking, contemplating, puzzling, and almost being content to do that, and not at the same time. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to send the video on. I'm going to just ask her for permission first, and then if she's happy, I'll send it on, because it's very, very. The video is amazing. It was done 2 years ago, but only kind of released properly recently, and it's just phenomenal. It's mind blowing, and it's mind blowing because how accurate it is. To someone who hasn't suffered any mental distress, they're not going to get a lot of it, but it does resonate so well. So I'm going to send that on, let you have a look at it, because first I need to get permission to do that, and then after that I will send it on to you. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I believe I went through all the points I wanted to. Oh yes, I had a question I have an unusual question from a member who can't actually be here. Wants to know what part of Scotland you're from. Well, you already answered that.
Yeah, I answered that,
So there you go, that person who asked that question, and it has been answered.
Just one final point there before we go into any questions that I forgot to mention. I thought it was just really interesting what you said about that close friend of yours who unfortunately lost their life in a car accident. And I hear stories like that all the time of people I hear of car crashes, and it's like people who crash their car at like 50 miles an hour going off a country road and hit a tree, and it's just, every time I hear a story like that, it's really weird. It's like, it just even affirms it even more, like, wow, how the hell was I so lucky? And what was different about me that night to these other people that that is for me has always been really remarkable. It has blown my mind, to be honest. But it makes me feel even more like I need to do this, because I really have been given a second chance.
Yeah, no, he was. What I found was that he was actually leaving a Christmas party, and his toxicology and all showed that he had no alcohol on him. He certainly wasn't suffering depression. I know that. He ate, and he did. It was icy. He slipped on black ice. But to hear that, he came out of that without a scratch, and it's just a superb chance that you need to just, grab life by the balls now and, go and do this and, continue, and we'll back you, we'll back you all the way and we'll support you. Because to come out of that and then, on the other hand, I've seen the other side of it where, my friend who was going slower than you were, and he ended up with his head ended up in the boot of his car.
Wow.
So, I mean, grab this opportunity. What you're doing is superb, absolutely superb, and we just have nothing but faith in you. We were dead right to get you on this call, and thank you, Lisa, who was the first person to communicate with you, and she was straight back to me saying, we need to get this guy on the call.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I mean, it means a lot to me.
No bother. Okay, what I'm going to do is firstly stop the recording,